If the ordinance passes, Matsu Borough residents will be paying a 5% tax on all alcoholic beverages sold at bars, restaurants, and liquor stores. In our next segment, you'll meet some of the Alaskans who came together to raise awareness and bring an end to the violent, underground, and underreported world of sex trafficking of children. Found a weakness in the law and made a recommendation to Congress to tighten it. This stretch along the north side of the park's highway is where MEA wants to build its transmission towers. Wasilla City Planner says those towers would be a visual blight that would have a negative impact on the scenic mountain views of this corridor. In the fastest growing area of the state, the Matsu Borough is known for its conservative stance on taxes. Now the Assembly wants to put another tax before voters.
I think it deserves an engaging conversation.
Matsu Borough Assemblyman Steve Colligan introduced the ordinance that adopts a sales tax on alcohol borough-wide, if the voters approve.
It's to go to the vote of the people.
Colligan represents District 4, the city of Wasilla. He says the Assembly is trying to adjust to the growth of the borough's population and provide education and emergency services without the tax burden falling solely on the shoulders of property owners.
The purpose is to support education and offset. The revenue stream is already there. The revenue stream is already coming from the property owner. This would be changing that portion of that revenue stream to a sales tax on that product. If the ordinance passes, Matsu Borough residents will be paying a 5% tax on all alcoholic beverages sold at bars, restaurants, and liquor stores. In the cities of Wasilla, Houston, and Palmer, where there is already a 2% sales tax, the proposed alcohol tax would be 3%. With the alcohol tax, we will be lowering property tax by that equivalent amount.
Not necessarily, says the borough finance director.
The alcohol tax may not reduce the mill rate, although it could reduce the mill rate if the Assembly chose to do that. But they might take the revenues from the alcohol tax and choose to use it for other programs.
So property taxes may not go down at all.
Correct.
What would you say to the bar owners? Because you have several bars and restaurants and liquor stores, the majority of which are probably in your district. So what are those owners saying about this proposed tax?
I haven't heard from any of them yet.
You didn't consult with them before you?
No.
It's just the same old story.
Ted Anderson owns the Mugshot Saloon and Tailgater Sports Bar in Wasilla. He doesn't think an alcohol tax will hurt business for bars and restaurants, but
I think we have spending problem more than anything, and I don't think new taxes of any kind are going to help that, because they'll just spend it. If they convince the property owners that it's going to help them, they're going to get more people to vote in favor of it.
And so the borough will wait to see what voters say on October 1st. Michelle White, Your Alaska Link. Megan was 12 years old when she was trafficked for sex by another teenager, a girl she met on her very first day out on the streets.
She knew I needed money, and so she told me that she knew of a place that was hiring and that would give me a job even though I wasn't of age. And so that's when she took me to a place where I thought it was going to be like a normal massage studio type of place, but there was more that went on there.
In her 12-year-old mind, having no previous experience with sex, trusting another girl in her situation, and desperate for money, Megan thought it was an innocent work proposal.
It wasn't pretty much until I seen the first client that I realized that it was actually something that you engage sexually, and I felt like I was up against the wall and I didn't know what to do, so I didn't back out of it.
The John told her he was a lawyer. He intimidated her and told her what to do.
It was an older man. He was like late 40s. I didn't know what to do, really. I knew I needed the money. I didn't really want to do it, but I went through with it anyway. And in the end, I ended up not getting the money anyway because the girl stole the money from me.
That girl is what law enforcement calls the bottom girl, who does the recruiting for the trafficker. She will be someone who is a lot less threatening than an older man, and they say she will often have the gift of gab.
This is usually an individual that worked for the pimp or the exploiter as a victim. They were recruited as a victim, usually at a young age. The offender usually knew them through non-criminal activities before. They recruit them in. They absolutely are a victim, but at some point they cross over to a threshold in which they become the offender.
Megan was a child of an abusive father who used drugs and caused her mother to move the family in and out of shelters. Megan's sister was sexually assaulted by her grandfather, who also tried to assault her at age 4. Her trajectory into a life of sex trafficking began after an innocent night roller skating with friends.
I was the one who was actually terrified of that. I got home late and she was really upset, and she was like, you know, if you want to act like your sisters, you might as well just stay out there and see if you can be on your own.
Megan's mom kicked her out at 12 years old. There are no official statistics for the number of young people in sex trafficking because it is mostly underground and victims are too afraid to report it. It is happening all over the state, and it has been for years. Special Agent Ornberg says the victims cross all demographics, but the young, the females, with a history of abuse and neglect, like Megan, face the greatest danger. Law enforcement officials say that runaways are the most at risk, and that within 24 hours of hitting the street, they will be approached by a trafficker. In Anchorage, teens tend to hang out at the transit center, so traffickers or their recruiters do as well. But they also use the internet to recruit.
If I'm a offender, I'm what we commonly refer to as pimps or madams. If I'm recruiting, let's say a young female, I'm doing that through social media, I'm doing that through email, phone calls, text messages, Snapchat, all of these great technology and apps that we have. I am building and establishing a relationship and rapport with that individual, and it takes time to build that level of trust, and that's what predators do.
The trafficker may play the role of a boyfriend and pursue her with attention and gifts of clothes, haircuts, and manicures, anything to pull her away from her family. Law enforcement calls this the grooming phase, where traffickers look for a weakness and then exploit it.
Maybe it's someone that grew up poor, right? They didn't have any money. I come in, I'm the pimp. I recognize that right away after a few conversations or utilizing social media. Instantly, what am I doing? I'm promising her, hey, if you come to me, maybe we'll start modeling. I'm going to make you all kinds of money. We're going to get a house. I'll make enough money that you can take care of your parents.
It's a gradual process of continually pushing the limits.
Then once they've got that trust, it's, hey, here's the deal. Here's what I need you to do. Do you love me? Do you care about me? I've been a great friend to you. You didn't have a house. I let you come move in with me. You didn't have any clothes. I bought you clothes. You didn't have a dad. You know, I've been there. I went to your recital. I went to school. Like, it's a recruitment process. The trust is built. Then that's when it starts with, this is what you need to do. Now, hey, maybe I need you to sleep with 1 or 2 guys, or maybe I need you to go out, you know, in traffic just once or twice. Okay, now I need you to do it 3 times. Now I need you to do it every day. Now when you don't do it, I'm going to use the fist instead of words.
Some traffickers use gifts to recruit or to, manipulate, and then some traffickers just use sheer violence and sexual assault.
Like the trafficker who followed and pursued Megan. One afternoon, she was jumped by 2 girls at the transit center, then taken by a trafficker to an alley where he raped her, while the girls watched and laughed. Running from the trafficker, scared and desperate to get away from being in and out of homelessness, Megan moved to California to live with her father, but couldn't get away from the trauma. When we come back, we'll follow Megan through the very violent world of sex trafficking and introduce you to more of the people who are fighting this exploitative and criminal business. The city of Wasilla and MEA have been in a standoff for more than 4 months. Some resolution may come tonight. At issue is MEA's request to build 80 to 100-foot high-voltage power lines from its plant in Eklutna to its Herning substation in Wasilla. To build them or to bury them is the question before the Planning Commission. This stretch along the north side of the park's highway is where MEA wants to build its transmission towers. Wasilla city planner says those towers would be a visual blight that would have a negative impact on the scenic mountain views of this corridor.
To the Planning Commission tonight, the recommendation is to adopt the resolution that's included in their package, which has the condition to put the power lines underground, but removes the requirement to put it within a utilidor. At the last meeting in July, they had proposed a condition to put it within a utilidor, but staff's recommendation to them is to just leave it at a condition to put it underground along the proposed route.
Wasilla Mayor Vern Ruprecht says MEA appears to be untractable and set on building overhead power lines right up the park's highway.
If you're trying to do the public good, and something like MEA is highly regulated because we We all know historically from the trust busting era that when you give somebody a license to a public utility, you're literally giving them a monopoly. With monopoly comes an awful lot of responsibility.
Brown says MEA has looked at 9 different routes since the inception of the project, and ultimately, the proposed route was the most feasible. Mayor Ruprecht says the route along the railroad and out of public view was feasible. So why not build the power lines underground and out of view?
It's a $41 million project when the above ground route is about $9.75 million. That is a $30+ million additional cost for all of our members, or we're actually going to go to the RCA and request that those charges be applied within the city.
Brown says utility companies in the lower 48 don't usually build underground power lines, but Wasilla is not the lower 48, and city staff say the route just doesn't protect its scenic vistas. Michele White, Your Alaska Link, the Mat-Su Valley.